my next project. It's making foam brick walls for terrain. And this is what I was originally doing, and this took way too long. It took hours to do this, and I was using the traditional method that I've seen posted on other videos, which is measure everything out with rulers, use an X-Acto knife to carve out the line first, and then go over with a pencil afterwards to bring out more detail and the depth. And it looks great. I mean, very precise, very clean walls, definitely a good piece. It took me a while to do. Very few mistakes that were made throughout the whole process. Obviously I have to go over it, sealing it, putting in more texture with the rolled up aluminum foil. But this took forever to do. I mean, it was basically all of last night that I did my crafting. So a couple hours maybe? And so I just didn't want to repeat that just tedious, boring task of just carving out brick by brick. I also I don't like the idea of making a whole bunch of little bricks and just gluing them together. I find that that's probably also just as tedious, if not more so, especially since I don't have any hot wire cutter and I'm using knives. So decided I didn't want to do that. So I decided, well, why don't I just make my own tool to do this? And this is what I came up with. And it is surprisingly simple and works surprisingly well. It's basically the same kind of concept as a cookie cutter. And what's great about this is that you can make and shape these however you want. Now, I went and matched this up to the same 1/2 inch by 1 inch brick that I was using for my measurements on this wall, just so I could have consistency with the other walls that I was going to make. And this worked so much faster. Now, the lines, as you'll see on here, they're not as crisp. Certainly the wall on the left, a lot greater detail, a lot smoother, at least at this point. But of course, I'm going to be texturing this with aluminum foil afterwards, and they're supposed to look like bricks. They're not supposed to look completely full, smooth pieces necessarily, unless that was the look I was going for. But I'm really just looking for basically these are going to be castle walls. So this works incredibly well. This takes the tedium out of it a lot because you don't have to measure anymore. So you don't have to put out your grid system, don't have to measure, you just go right to the tool. And this took literally seconds to do on this side. I know there's the black roll of paint that was already put on here by the manufacturer. But I'll come down here and basically do a row on video of just how easy this is. I'm totally not afraid to come down here and do it, but you can see there, just super simple, real easy to do. And then after that, it actually takes longer to go through and do the detail with the pencil because I did want them to have a little bit bigger sizes to them. Just so they have that kind of cornered texture on the side. And I'm doing this pretty rough for the camera, but again, just you get the idea. This is so much quicker. So how to make one of these? It's actually probably with stuff that you have lying around already. I mounted it on the wood. You don't actually even need to mount it on the wood, but this is actually made from the lid of a can. Sheet metal could be used. I'm sure a pop can or soda can could also be used. I thought initially that I would need my snips, which I usually would use to cut metal and sheet metal. But for this metal that's so small, after I cut it with the snips, I actually found that I could just use regular scissors. It's not that hard. And you just basically have to be a little bit understanding of geometry to make the pattern. So for my pattern for the 1/2 inch, I basically made, that's probably not going to show up on camera too well. Let me use a larger Sharpie. Half inch, inch long, and then I made a centimeter, inch long, centimeter. And yes, I am mixing together the empirical and metric. But you just basically draw a pattern like that onto the tin, cut it out, fold it up. I didn't even solder or weld these together. I don't have a welding set, so that's not gonna happen. I suppose you could if you had it available, or a soldering set, and you might be able to keep the integrity of it a little bit better. Drilled a hole into a small piece of wood. I used a very flat-headed, small screw to go on the inside of it, and just for convenience sake to have the little handle, just like you would with a stamper. Don't need that though. You could just as easily not use that and get the results. I haven't tried to see how small I can make these to make really tiny bricks or really tiny stone patterns, but the idea is, you can do triangle, hexagon. If you wanted to do, if you have Dungeons and Dragons and you wanted to do just lay out your grid pattern on foam, this would be the way to go. Very easy, and it's a tool that you have now available. Now I have this tool forever and can just stamp out this particular dimension anytime I want, and I can build other tools to smaller sizes, larger sizes, and just flip away. All I need is just recyclables. That's all that's really needed. Some tools that are pretty simple. I mean, you have to have a drill, you have to have maybe some sanding paper, scrap wood, but this is all stuff that I have around my garage, which is totally accessible to me. So probably not a very big investment for a tool that saves a whole lot of time. I'm gonna go through and finish these off, and I'll have in a future video, or maybe even connect it onto the rest of this video, what this all looks like after it's done. So hope this is helpful. Leave comments, subscribe, all that kind of nice stuff, and see you next time. All right, so it's the next day. I will admit I was able to get the other pieces done pretty fast, but it wasn't necessarily because of the tool. This tool, it certainly works, but it makes for really sloppy bricks because it actually isn't welded together. These seams just open up as you're pushing it into the foam, and it opens up. So this is not necessarily the best tool for the job. I am going to try to craft a different tool altogether to get it. It's good in concept, but my execution of it was not correct. I'm sure if I was able to weld this down and it would be consistent and be a heck of a lot better, but wasn't able to. So this is the kind of situation that happens when using this tool. As you can see here, this whole line of bricks got all messed up. And this is okay if this is the look that you're going for and you want a piece that is having a lot of character, a lot of flaws built into it, like for an old wall, but not so much for something that if you wanted something nice and crisp and clean. I was kind of looking for walls that were going to be able to provide a variety of scenarios, and I wanted them to kind of be somewhat uniform so that at least each piece looked a little bit like one another. But I will show you what I did later. As it turns out, I just was being a little bit too cautious with my setup, and that was what was taking so long. Was I was measuring everything out, putting down ink, making a nice grid pattern before I would make all my cuts. Don't really need to do that. It's simple enough just to take a metal ruler, take your X-Acto knife, make your points of where you want to be making. You make your measurements, get it lined up, and just slowly cut with the X-Acto knife. And then I found that the use of the pen is better to create the rounded edges in the foam than it was the pencil. And maybe it was just the pencil that I had, but it kept on breaking. The edge keeps on breaking. Having to resharpen it causes it to not necessarily be uniform, whereas just the cheap pen that has the plastic tip on the outside does a very consistent job. So doing that did help out quite a lot in terms of saving time. I will admit that modifying this a little bit by unfolding it does allow to make these details on the side a lot easier, because all I have to do is just follow the edge, push, 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 use the smaller edge, push, 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 and these do work for just that individual lined piece, as opposed to going ahead and measuring this all out and using the X-Acto knife. Following up with this with the pen works perfectly fine for the edges. So these are all now carved out, and just because I was able to just change my technique, I was able to get them done in a lot quicker fashion than the first one that I had done, and I'm going to be using that technique for things in the future, certainly. And now I'm going to texturize these to give them the nice, I don't know if that you can see the difference. So they look a lot more like stone. I'm going to do that for all of these. Then use the Mod Podge and black paint, which is just a combination of store-bought Mod Podge, acrylic back paint, mixed it together. Apply this, provides a nice sealant. Should be able to paint afterwards with that. Gonna do all that, and we'll see you after I've done all that. All right, got all the Mod Podge and black paint combination up and done with. Time to move on to painting. Came out like that, like it's supposed to. I guess my Mod Podge and black paint combination doesn't actually get it as black as I want, because you can still see some of the pink coming through it, but I think it's good enough for a base coat, and I'm gonna go ahead and paint these up. Hopefully getting these done as quickly as I can. I'm gonna use just a darker type gray to start off with, and then move on to some dry brushing in the lighter, either lighter gray or tan appearance. And it looks pretty decent. So we're gonna go through, do all that, and see you again in a bit. And here's the finished product. What you don't see off camera is that I painted this first with gray, and then a light dry brushing of tan, followed by a black wash, and that's what ended up giving me the texture and look here. Right is a little minifigure from Lego, so you get the idea about how big these items are. Turned out pretty well. Took a long time to make, a lot longer than I thought. I don't know if I quite like XPS foam, particularly if I want to be able to make a large scale version of all this. But the detail came out pretty nice. I'm gonna put a little bit closer so you can see. So it actually does look like stonework. The black wash that came later, as well as the painting that I did after the other ones that were posted in the rest of the video, came out pretty well. I can't say that I quite like the attempt that I had to try to go quicker by making that little tool. That didn't quite work out so well, so that's probably not going to be used in the future. So maybe if somebody is so inclined to make a better tool, you can feel free to do that, but I'm going to kind of stick with this, the very simple methods that I used earlier. So that's pretty much it. Please continue to watch videos, subscribe, watch more. Should be posting more. The direction of the channel might also change too. Look forward to it. Bye-bye.